I'd like to welcome everybody today to the service to honor Jake Reed on his day, Officer Jake Reed Day. This time I'd like to call Captain Trevor Duncan forward for our invocation.
If you would, please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, as we gather here today in a time of remembrance, we look to you for peace and for joy to overshadow grief. Please continue to bring comfort to Jake's family, his friends, and his fellow officers and co-workers who miss his presence here with us. While we want to remember the good times with Jake, help us get through the ongoing grief and sadness. Lord, please help us today as we celebrate the life of Jake and remember that you're in control. Please continue to put your protective hand over these men and women who go forth every day in danger to protect our city and our community. Blessed are the people who continue to live because of Jake's purposeful willingness to be an organ donor as his final act of giving. Help us to never forget Jake and the ultimate sacrifice that he made. Lord, remind us that it is in the sacrifice of your son Jesus that we find hope. It's in the precious name of Jesus that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Captain. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? 100.
Go ahead.
Will you please hold Patrol 1 for a moment of silence for Officer Jake Reed?
Hold Patrol 1 for a moment of silence.
Thank you. 100. Will you please release Patrol 1? It's time for Detective Sam both you come forward for the reading of Jake's obituary.
Jake Alexander Reed was born on December 9, 1994 in Pleasanton, California, the son of Robert and Melissa Reed. He grew up in Bentonville, Arkansas, and graduated from Bentonville High School in 2013. Jake was a gifted athlete who played baseball all 4 years of high school. He graduated with honors from MSSU with a Bachelor of Science, Criminal Justice Administration, and Associate of Science Law Enforcement degree in 2017. He became a Joplin police officer following his graduation. He was also a member of Kappa Alpha Order. He became a Joplin police officer following the graduation. Jake had an adventurous spirit with a great amount of confidence in all that he attempted to do. He was undoubtedly skilled in computer assembly and technology. He loved gaming of all types. Jake enjoyed mountain biking, golfing, and wakeboarding. Jake had a fierce love for all animals, especially his dogs. Jake had an infectious smile. He treated everyone with kindness and respect. Jake was a great person and a genuinely awesome guy. Jake met and married the love of his life, Bailey Strella. They were married on May 8, 2021 at White Rock Mountain in Arkansas. In addition to his wife, Jake is survived by his parents, Robert and Melissa Reed, his brother, Sam Reed, his mother and father-in-law, Rod and Kelly Strella, and his sister and brother-in-law, Paige and Aaron Biddle, and his nephew, Brooks Biddle. Jake was injured in the line of duty on Tuesday, March 8, 2022. He gave the ultimate sacrifice for his city through his service as a Joplin police officer. His heroism continues as he spreads the gift of life to several recipients as a vital organ donor. End of watch, March 11, 2022.
Thank you, Jason. This time I'd like to read a proclamation from the city of Joplin. Proclamation proclaiming March 9, 2022 as Officer Jake Reed Day. Whereas Jake was born on December 9, 1994 in Pleasanton, California, the son of Robert and Melissa Burley Reed, and whereas Jake grew up in Bentonville, Arkansas and graduated from Bentonville High School in 2013. Jake was a gifted athlete who played baseball all 4 years of high school, and whereas Jake Reed graduated from Missouri Southern State University with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice Administration and Associate of Science in Law Enforcement degrees in 2017. He was also a member of Kappa Alpha and became a Joplin police officer after graduation. And whereas Jake had an infectious smile, he treated everyone with kindness and respect. He was a great person and a genuinely awesome guy. And leaves behind his wife, Bailey. Whereas on March 8, 2022, Officer Jake Reed gave the ultimate sacrifice for this city through his service as Joplin police officer. And whereas it is fitting and proper that we express our sincerest gratitude for that dedicated service and courageous deeds of Officer Reed, and recognize the ultimate sacrifice he paid to protect our loved ones and the citizens of Joplin. And now therefore, I, Douglas W. Lawson, Mayor of the City of Joplin, do hereby proclaim March 9th as Officer Jake Reed Day. At this time, we have several officers that would like to speak on behalf of Jake. Sir Nigel?
I'm Sergeant Eisman. I was the sergeant on duty on March 8th. What makes a man a great man? A great man is someone who is happy with his life and the world around him, and who would want to look out for and protect those that are around him. A great man will smile and laugh, and others will enjoy his company for who he is. To me, this describes Jake. I first met Jake when I was the FTO coordinator for the Joplin Police Department. He was a trainee under my friend Randy Black. Jake had gotten his pants tailored, and he was very proud of his pants. Me and Randy Black pointed out to him that his pants were about 2 to 3 inches above his boots, and his tailor had turned them into skinny pants. About this time, when we were pointing this out to Jake, he also learned he could barely bend over anything. So throughout the years, me and Randy would point this out to him, and for the next several weeks, he also was pointed out quite regularly about his pants. But after a while, every time we would bring it up, he either would not remember, or he would just look at us and smile until we do and say, "I know those look good." So I had the privilege of being Jake's sergeant. I supervised a lot of people in my time at Joplin. And I gotta honestly say that he was one of my favorites. Jake was smart. He could have done anything in this world that he wanted to do. That said before, he was very gifted with computers. He chose to be an officer to help people and to guide the line between right and wrong, to protect those that wished to do them harm. Jake was also very funny, and could make you laugh very easily. I always looked forward to the end of shift when my guys would get together before we went home. Jake would sit down, smile, he'd put a chew in, and you just get this look about him, and he would rabbit hole down some obscure, hilarious topic or make some joke. And shortly afterwards, he'd be trading insults or jokes back and forth with other guys on the shift. A lot of my stories with Jake are not for this setting, just because. But a couple of them that I found pretty funny, both me and Jared Swan with Jake. Jake was talking about how when he was mowing his yard, he could not quite figure it out why his yard was clumpy, why there was giant piles of grass everywhere. And we asked Jake what he was doing, and he said, "Well, I'm just mowing." Well, come to find out, he had the sticks all the way forward on his mower, clear across his yard. And even though the places that had grown up about knee high or so, he would just take the mower just as fast as he could over it, where he would barely stay in the seat. We explained to him, Jake, if you slow down, it'll thin that stuff out where you don't have these giant piles of grass. And he would tell us that, no, that's not it, something's gotta be wrong with my mower. Jake was especially proud of his land, or his, I can't remember if he called it a farm or a plantation, but he was very proud of what him and his wife had bought. He did not like to pull weeds whatsoever. So one night we're sitting there, and he's talking about his farm or plantation, whatever it was, and he starts talking about how there's this flower bed that he doesn't want anything to grow there. He doesn't want to have to weed it. So he was asking what he could do to make sure that this didn't happen. So we told him, well, just kind of jokingly, we told him, Jake, you can salt the earth there. Nothing is going to grow. Then he was like, that's a great idea. I won't have to pull any weeds. So then we told him that if you do this, though, your wife is going to be highly upset if she tries to plant something and it's not growing because of what you've done. He just smiled and went off on something else. I don't know if he ever did it, but he was sure thinking about it so that he didn't have to pull any weeds. So, Jake truly cared about people, and especially people that he worked with. I remember after one especially brutal call with a kid, the kid went to the hospital, he got flown out. I don't remember what happened to him after that, but it was extremely bad. And I went around, checked on all my guys that were directly involved. Then I went to a little hidey of mine to do reports and just do supervisory stuff. Jake pulled up, which wasn't out of the ordinary. He'd do that from time to time, just to talk, get advice, stuff like that. So I could tell something was wrong though, or something was off. So I figured he had something I needed to fix, some question that he'd been wanting to ask. So after he's sitting there just making small talk for a couple minutes, I asked him, hey, what's up? He said, told me that he was just checking on me. Making sure that I was good. He didn't have to do that. Wasn't in his job description. He just did that because that's who he was. So I have countless stories of Jake being the awesome person that he was, whether it being kind to a person on call or helping another officer. Jake was smart, kind, funny, dedicated. Someone that touched a lot of lives. Someone who truly made the world a better place for being the person he was. I once heard that a man's worth is not measured by his bank account, but his worth is measured by how he is remembered and the lives that he touched. I believe this saying, and this makes Jake one of the wealthiest men that I know. Jake touched a lot of lives, and he was always to be remembered as the amazing man that he was. To the stories of those that know him, and the final gift that he gave to several people with his ultimate sacrifice. Thank you.
bring me in front of so many people and out of the dungeon. When I was asked to speak today, I was extremely nervous. How can I do him justice? What is there to say that hasn't already been said? Then I sat there to myself, and in his words in my head, telling me I can do it. We'd always had a way of making me stronger or taking me down a couple notches if needed. I will always remember the sparkle of his eyes when he was fresh on the street out of FTO. He came in, looked at all the lights and the screens with wide eyes, asking me what everything did. We explained it, but knew he wouldn't remember. He continually sent entries or questions to the wrong console. We would laugh it off and constantly give him a hard time, tell him which console he went to, and he'd do it again. We would laugh. He was one of the few officers that would always come in and say hi to dispatch no matter what. He wanted to have that connection with us, like we were family. He would come in, talk about life, spend some time chit-chatting. One of the conversations most was how he needed to put a ring on that finger of baby. Because he'll never get another woman that will spoil him and have the patience that she did. He would say, I know, with a smirk on his face and that dip in his lip. He would often have conversations about Colorado with me, because that's where I was from, and that's where he loved to visit with his family quite often. We would talk about the beauty of the mountains, and he would always question, why did you move here? My reply would always be the same. It's a great place to visit, but a horrible place to live, and he would laugh. And oh boy, when college football came around, our teams didn't play each other, but you would think they did. We always talked about the competitiveness of our teams. I'll never forget how excited he was when he came in with his dad when he came in to tell me he was going with his dad to a Notre Dame football game together. I told him one day I would love to take my son to a Florida game and can only hope he was as excited as Jake. He would make it a point to always ask me how my day was going and which officer had irritated me that day. We would both laugh, and you see, the men and women in blue are my brothers and sisters. I always have their backs, but all the time, brothers and sisters, we go back and forth. He would always be interested to know what kind of nicknames we had for the officers now. He would laugh when I told him some. I'll never forget when he first went to Eve's, and as angry as I was he left me, I was secretly a little jealous that he was joining one of my favorite teams. I told him that he could be the Tigger to Sam Bothy's Eeyore. And he laughed so hard. I also admired the way that he looked up to senior officers, the pride he took when he was talking about Officer Chris Johnson or Officer Bobby Brown, how he always stated that he wanted to be just like them. His ambition to become a K-9 officer was amazing. I was already close with Reed through the years, but he got closer with everyone in dispatch when he was placed on light duty, and he became a call taker. I then trained him to do warrants, which he became very competitive at. He would see how many he could complete and ask me how many I did. He beat me some days, but I won most. We would then have to file them, to which he would sing the alphabet song under his breath. We asked him if that in fact what he was doing. He smiled and said, "Of course. How else do you know the alphabet?" We all got a good laugh out of that. And then we bought him an alphabet strip to put on the wall. When he came in to find the alphabet, it was around Valentine's Day, and he told Greg Henry it was the best Valentine's gift he's ever had. It will forever stay up in our center, his honor and memory. I could go on and on about the great officer and man Reed was, but there is not enough time in the day. I will end with this. Reed, you are loved and very missed and thought about every day until we meet again.
Darren Prater. I was one of Jake's good friends. First off, just wanted to thank everyone for coming here today in honor of Jake. I'm very honored to have known Jake and call him one of my friends. I'm going to share a few of my favorite Jake stories, but when I was asked to speak on today, I immediately said yes, and I was very honored to do so. But I started thinking about our times together and our stories, and I found very quickly that I was limited on this setting and what I could say and what I couldn't. So I first met Jake my freshman year at Missouri Southern. Jake was this goofy dude, long hair, wore a headband, ankle bracelets. He drove this big truck that had this sticker on the back that said Malibu. I guess it's some kind of wakeboarding brand, boat or something. I remember thinking, I'm not going to be friends with this surfer. Fast forward, me and a buddy ended up at Jake's apartment one night before going out. Jake was hunched over a computer, giant lip of grizzly wintergreen, and he was playing some bizarre computer game. And even though I barely knew Jake, he was just as friendly and acted like we'd been friends for years. And he looked at me and said, "What's up, dude? What's up?" Well, he noticed I had spilled something on my shirt and I had a stain on it. And Jake would not leave me alone about it. And he knew that we were going out that night, and he said, "You're not going to wear that shirt if we're all going out." So Jake insisted that I go into his closet and pick one of his shirts out. Even though I didn't want to, because I barely knew Jake, Jake insisted, would not leave me alone. And that really stuck with me, that Jake was willing to just open up his closet and give a stranger he barely knew clothing. And from that point forward, we were friends. As time went on, Jake and I would schedule criminal justice classes together at Missouri Southern. In one specific class, Jake and I sat next to each other, and we would help each other with assignments and study and so on. The night before our final research project was due, Jake called and wanted to know how I was doing on the project and had some questions, and we talked. And he mostly wanted to know how to do the assignment. So I was walking him through it, and Jake said, "Well, why don't you just email yours, and I'll use it as a template." And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I can do that. I'll email it to you, but just change it, because I don't want us to get in trouble for cheating." He said, yeah, he won't care. I'll just use yours as a guide. So I email it to him. Weekend goes by, we show up, we turn our assignments in, or print out our assignments, we show up to class the next day. I look at Jake, and he's got this big smile on his face that everybody knows. Everybody that knows Jake knows that smile. I look over at his was identical to mine. The only thing Jake had changed was the name. And I'm going, "Jake, we're going to get in trouble. We can't fail this assignment. They're going to give us an F." And Jake goes, "Oh, he's not going to care. He's not going to care." So we sat next to each other. We turned in the assignments, identical assignments. I'm stressing out, thinking I just failed this class, going to have to retake it. All weekend long, didn't get an email, didn't see anything that we had cheated. So Monday rolls around, show up to the class, we sit in. And Jake's just laughing. He's just like, "Oh, he didn't say anything. And I'm going, "Gosh, we're going to get an F back. I know we are." So the teacher passes out the assignments. I get mine back. It's a B. Okay. Could be worse. Could be worse. Jake gets his back. He's smiling. Everyone knows that smile. He's laughing. "So what'd you get, Jake?" "An A." I said, "Jake, how do you cheat off me and get a better grade?" He said, "You can take it up with the professor. I'm sure he'll give you an A." Jake and I had many golfing excursions over the years together. My favorite thing was trying to watch him figure out if he was left or right-handed. If he sliced one with his right hand, it was because he was left-handed, and if he sliced one with his left hand, it was because he was right-handed. So he always used that excuse to his advantage. He never knew this, but when we would play together, I would write Jake Reed on all my golf balls, so when people would find my horrible shots, they'd think it was his. So once I got on patrol, Jake and I routinely meet up at the church at Schiff and Perkins whenever we were working together. I'd pull up, we'd go window to window. Jake would have a full lip of Grizzly Wintergreen and a vitamin water bottle to spit in. And we'd mostly talk about just random stuff, but Jake always wanted to know the drama. He always wanted to know the gossip, what was going on. He always wanted to know what was going on in the county, as he said it. Jake used to love to tell me about his land and all the work that he was putting in on the land. And all the work. And that his coyote problem was getting out of control. No matter how long we talked, and the conversation would always reach an end point, Jake would always ask, so what else is new? And we would continue to talk more and more, and again, the conversation would reach an end point. And Jake again would say, so what else is new? And I would come up with something else, and we'd continue to talk, and we'd go on. And that conversation would also reach the end. And Jake would look at me and say, so what else is new? Jake would never let a conversation end. He always kept letting it go with, so what else is new? He always wanted to know what was new in my life, what was going on, and I deeply miss those conversations. I think about him every day, and I'd give anything to have those talks again. So I'm going to wrap up my speech with one thing. I'm going to say, so what else is new? So thank you guys for letting me talk here today.
Hello, I'm Officer Rich, K-9 handler for Joplin. Captain Jimenez Wednesday was speaking about cops and public speaking briefly. Got me to thinking, we go to intense situations all the time, we handle it, and it seems pretty normal to us. You ask that same cop to talk in front of strangers, give an interview with media, or stand in front of their fellow officers, and panic sets in. We don't know what to do. So I say that to say bear with me as I go through the speech, and I don't pull a Ricky Bobby, and I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm going to start off by saying thanks to the family for allowing me the honor. Speak on this day. You've all heard the stories already about those patrol uniform and those tight pants. And Jake and that farm life, only to find out it was a house on 2 acres. It wasn't out in the country though, so I'll give him that. And then all of us waiting for him at the golf tournament, knowing that he was gonna hook us up with those free golf balls from his dad. Especially me, because I was gonna need the whole box for that tournament. And then one of the funnier ones is he was on light duty with a broken finger. And we sat at lunch one day talking, and he just told us that was his meal ticket. He was gonna get so rich off this broken finger. The city owed him. And we just laughed, because we're like, no way, Jake. Not gonna happen. For those that don't know, Jake almost became part of the K-9 unit. He first reached out to Officer Brown, stating he wanted to, but didn't know if he could come to training, but he was interested. Like all have come, said they were interested, he got caught hook, line, and sinker. Started attending training every week, asking all sorts of questions. Matter of fact, Officer Brown shared a video this morning about Jake. We used him as a decoy. It was a fun video. But one day he pulled up in that fancy truck to training. And of course, like most cops, we had to give him a hard time and say, must be nice. And we'd go on. Well, he's complaining about the truck. And he's like, this thing's junk. I just got out of the shop and something's wrong. So we're like, okay, let's pop the hood and take a look around. Not that any of us had any clue what we were talking about, but we thought we'd help Jake. And we didn't find anything wrong with that truck. Next week, he shows up to training, and just to be nice, we're like, Jake, what was wrong with the truck? Oh, nothing. The display was messed up, and that was the temperatures of the transmission and engine. We're like, okay. And so we just went on. He made us laugh, and we couldn't help but love being around him. And I know for a fact that if it wasn't for that back injury, he would have tested for our unit, and no doubt, he'd be an amazing hammer. While my walk of faith hasn't been easy, and I don't consider myself some great example, I have a few things in my faith I stay true to. And one is I know that when I get to heaven, Jake will be there. And I'm happy he's in the best place he can be. Well, I selfishly want him here, just like everybody else, to hang out with and talk to. I know he's in a better place. And I may not agree or understand God's plan, but I have learned to trust in his will even when it's hard. I finally say this to Bailey and all the family. Most cops in this room are not great at communicating. You can ask our wives and spouses. They'll tell you. Just know that when he entered this profession, you also inherited us. This entire family of blue. And anyone who wears the badge. I hope you know that if you ever need anything, we are a text or phone call away. I often think of his laugh and his smile and all his mannerisms and the fun we had working the streets. I know myself and everybody else here will never forget him. On behalf of all the canine handlers that were in the unit, we can't thank you enough for supporting and encouraging his love for canine. We also thank you for giving us some final time to say goodbye to our buddy when you didn't have to, and for allowing us to get to know you in those final days. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Logan Bowline. I first want to thank everyone for being here to honor Officer Jake Reed on Jake Reed Day. Now this day was dedicated to him because today is the day that his organs were donated and immediately taken to other people in need of them. Not only is Jake a hero for his brave actions on March 8th, but he's a hero to many others because he was able to provide them with a new life. Jake was a very happy and outgoing person, but when thinking about what I wanted people to know most about Jake was that Jake is fearless. Not only was Jake fearless in his career as a police officer, but I also got to see him be fearless in other things he did. As many know, Jake and I love to mountain bike. And anyone who has ever been mountain biking know there are different levels to mountain biking, from beginner trails to expert trails. Well, Jake was never good at just building up experience on beginner trails to get better. He would just say, let's send it, and we would head off to find the expert trails. There was this one specific trail we would ride where at the top was about a 4 to 5 foot drop. Now a drop is a trail feature where you typically ride on a wood platform that stood higher than the ground. You would ride off the platform and descend however far in the air until you hit the ground. The key issue with these are the platforms are not very wide and you have to travel at fast speeds so that you wouldn't nosedive off the edge. Jake and I would ride this trail almost every time we went riding. However, we would avoid this drop. Typically, Jake would say, "You going to send it?" And I would tell him no, and that I didn't think we were at that level yet. Well, one day, Jake and I were riding around, and we found a kid who was riding by himself. Jake told the kid he really liked his bike and began asking him all types of questions, from how long has he been riding to where he was from. The kid told us that he had only been riding for about 3 months. We at the time had been riding for about a year, so naturally we thought we had the leg up. We began talking about that specific trail and the drop feature at the start. The kid said that he loved that trail, so we headed there to ride it together. Once we got there, the kid without hesitation went off the drop as if he had done it 1,000 times before. Jake looked back to me and said something to the effect of, "I'm gonna do it." He proceeded to take a few practice runs up to it and decided against it. We went around the drop as usual and continued down the trail, or so I thought. I followed behind the kid, and once we were at the bottom, Jake was nowhere to be found. I sat at the top for a few minutes and then started to ride back up, fearing that something had happened. But before I could even start riding, my phone began to ring, and it was Jake. I asked him where he was, and his response was, "I'm gonna do it." I asked him what he was going to do, and he said, "The drop. I'm gonna do it." Knowing that this wasn't going to end well, I went all the way back up and found him sitting at the trailhead waiting for me. He asked me if I would do it with him, and I responded, I'll do it if you do it. This was absolutely the wrong thing to say, because it gave him more confidence than he already had. All of a sudden it was on. Jake began riding towards the drop, and I knew that I had to follow him. I began following him, but I quickly realized that he was not going fast enough for the drop. I started telling him he needed to go faster, but it was too late. He took a nosedive down to the ground, but somehow saved it. He then was holding on for dear life to avoid crashing. And he would have been successful had there not been one small tree on the side of the trail. It was over. Jake was calling for a medevac and said he was done riding. The kid we were with disappeared, and I found that Jake had cut his leg open on the tree and was again yelling at me to get him a medevac. We then had to ride all the way back down the hill to get to our truck. And the whole way down, he asked me why I let him do it. I thought this would be the end of doing those type of features for a while, but oh no, not for Jake. You see, crashing while mountain biking is kind of like when you first touch something hot and it hurt. When you start to do something similar to when you crash, your brain starts making you overthink it or tells you not to do it. Well, not with Jake. Again, he was fearless. Sometime later, we were riding and we went back to that trail. We got to the top, and again, he looked back at me and asked if I was going to do it. I responded and said, I'll do it if you do it. Without hesitation, he was off towards the drop. This time he had the perfect speed and rode right off of it. He landed and let out a big woo! I then followed behind him, hoping that I would also make it. And to this day, I think there are only 2 reasons I was able to do that feature. For I had once crashed bad off of a drop and really tried to avoid bigger ones at all costs. However, that day, 1, I couldn't have my friend do it and I chickened out. But 2, being able to see how fearless he was to do it again gave me all the confidence I needed. So I leave you with this. In life, we all need to strive to be fearless like Jake. Thank you.
For those that don't know me, I'm Mac Roach. I'm at Jake in Police Academy. We were assigned the same seats, or right next to each other, so we quickly became friends. I remember seeing him when we lived in the same apartments. Like Prater was saying, long hair, the truck. It's like, oh, this guy's a douchebag. Then later, he shaved his head for the academy. Come to find out, he was the same guy after I saw his truck. And I was still right later. Me, Jake, and Bolin tried to stay on the same shift for several years. We were very successful at that for a few years, and the most fun I had was us 3 trying to find trouble. Like everyone said about Cooper, and what you guys have said, most of the stories aren't appropriate for today, like his bachelor party, which I still have a lot of pictures of, and I've sent it to him regularly to remind him. When it came to starting that night off, there's a group of us, we all did a shot together. Those who know Jake, he talked a big game. So he wanted the manliest shot you can think of, which was the gummy bear shot. It was pretty good. A lot of people mentioned Wednesday Jake's love for his dogs and just animals in general. I regrettably made the decision to put on Facebook that I was giving away my 2 dogs because of certain reasons. I showed up next day to the PD to get in my locker, and there was a sticker of a puppy on my locker. I don't think he talked to me for a week. He was very disappointed in me. He also had a strong love for my daughter. We'd go over to Jake and Bailey's for dinner. I think Jake played with Rayleigh the entire time. My daughter loved him. The other night, we mentioned Jake, and my daughter's face lit up with a big smile. And she mentioned he's in heaven with Papa Brian, which is my dad. Everyone that knew him knew he was a great character. He was full of love. When I went on admin leave after an incident, Jake came over and we talked about it, and he started crying. Personally, it made me super uncomfortable with emotions like we talked about. But it just showed me the love he had for me and he has for all of his friends and family. I'm reminded daily by the things throughout my day of him. and I just simply miss my friend. My name is Bob Reed, Jake Reed's dad. Today is a day to honor Jake, our son, brother, and husband. As a family, we consider today, March 11th, to be Jake's end of watch because it was the last day we were with him before he was taken to have his organs donated to save more lives. I did not have the strength to talk at Jake's funeral service last March 18th, so I will try today. I'm so proud of Jake's brother, Sam, for being able to represent our family and talk about his brother's memory that day in such a beautiful way. Something we will never forget. I know Jake was and is so proud of Sam for being so strong. It has been 1 year now since Jake's passing, and the truth is, it has not gotten any easier without him. Our family misses him more each day, and we have a void in our heart that will never be filled. The only thing we can do is to continue to remember him, honor him, and be the best people we can be without him. Every night before I go to bed when Jake was alive, I would ask God to protect him. And now every night I tell Jake how much I miss him and love him, and I cry. As a parent, it's your job or responsibility to protect your children. And I feel Jake won't have to live with that forever. I know being a police officer is very dangerous, but I still feel that I failed him. We do not know why God took Jake from us so early in his life, and will not know until we see him again in heaven someday. I'm sure he's doing wonderful things up there. I know he is. We are blessed that we have our youngest son, Sam, living back in Northwest Arkansas to be close to us. Melissa and I have moved across the street from Bailey to be close to her and Jake in spirit. Also, we are so fortunate to have the remarkable relationship we have with Bailey's family. I do not think two families could be any closer, and we have all needed and leaned on each other as we tried to get through each day. Jake loved Bailey's family so much and was so close to them. We knew from the beginning how lucky he was, and we were. Jake loved Bailey, and he still does, more than anything in the world. He found the love of his life, his best friend, and his true soulmate. Melissa and I, after the first time meeting Bailey, knew she was the one for Jake. I have been quoted as saying shortly after meeting Bailey, if he doesn't marry her, he is an effing idiot. We have set up an Officer Jake Reed Memorial Scholarship with Missouri Southern State University and have given one criminal justice major student free tuition for this school year and will continue to do so each year. Also, we set up a donor-advised fund named Officer Jake Reed Memorial Fund with the Community Foundation of the Ozarks. Both of these foundations wouldn't be possible with the generous donations from my sister Marilyn and her husband Rory and their family. The mission statement for Jake's donor-advised memorial fund is to provide resources and support to families of first responders killed in the line of duty and to first responders who are severely injured in the line of duty and to their families, and to provide resources and support to law enforcement K-9 units. Our first donation in Jake's honor was to the Joplin K-9 for care of retired K-9 dogs. These are some of the things we are doing to honor Jake and continue to help others in his name and memory. We are trying to be strong and do the right things every day. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. In closing, thank all of you for being here and your love and support over the last year. You have truly touched our hearts and made our dark days a little brighter. When you think of Jake, just remember that big smile looking down on all of us from heaven.
Thank
thank you all for being here today, and thank you to the incredible people who have proudly spoke today on Jake's behalf. My brother gave his life to the Joplin Police Department and Joplin community. Those who knew and loved Jake will never stop saying his name. I can promise you that. I can promise you if you met Jake or even heard a story about him, you'd fall in love with him. Jake is the most warm-hearted, charismatic, courageous, and hilarious man I have ever known. He was unapologetically always himself. I don't recall a day when Jake didn't make me laugh, even after arguing with him. I miss the sound of Jake's laugh and that beautiful smile. I miss the hope for a long lifetime of brotherhood. Like most siblings, Jake and I didn't always get along. I can recall the times that he was babysitting me and proceeded to shoot an airsoft gun in the crack below my bedroom door. Or when I had to walk him upstairs almost every single night because he was afraid of the dark, which was fair until he passed 13 years old and I had to cut him off. I remember him teaching me how to play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas on the original Xbox, and it was fun until I had nightmares of carjackings and gangs at 8 years old. But it didn't matter because I wanted to be like Jake, the cool, fun-loving guy everybody wanted to know. I used to automatically include myself when he had a buddy over and they turned on Family Guy or South Park or some adult animated comedy my parents did not understand the crude extent of. And Jake went through a lot of, let's call them phases, through his childhood and adulthood. Like was mentioned, once he grew his hair out and styled it back, and he stated that it was his flow and not to touch the flow. He started watching soccer. In his mind, he became David Beckham. Or when he begged my parents for a nice hunting bow and ended up putting an arrow through the neighbor's roof. I can't forget about the times he told people he would make it as a professional wakeboarder after using our boat for maybe one season. Or when he and Bailey bought their first home and Jake, the country southern boy, had to tend over his land, which, 3 acres? Yeah. Throughout all these Jakes, there was one constant, is that he wanted to be a police officer since the day he was born. I don't remember a moment in time where Jake didn't want to be a cop. It seemed to be his destiny. One that although we feared, we couldn't hold him back from. And he was a damn good cop. He wanted to be a K-9 officer more than anything in this world, and he deserved that. He deserved a long lifetime with his family and friends and the community he protected day by day. He deserved to have forever with his wife, Bailey, who, if you know her, is the most selfless and loving human being I've ever met. I can't ask for a better person to love my brother. And I also can't ask for better parents who have gone through something that no parent should endure. They fight every day. They are survivors. To raise a cop as well loved and respected as Jake, Mom, Dad, you've done more than an incredible job raising your sons. And I can't begin to tell you how proud he was and is of this family. Jake is my big brother. I spent every single day of my life knowing him. When I say Jake is, it's because Jake still is. And it's not in the way he was before, and it's not in the way some people tried to tell me that he would be. It is in the subtleties of moments in time, moments where I know somehow, some way he is still here. May it be an eagle following above in the sky, or a gust of wind hitting the chimes on a completely still day, or when the door of his old room opens wide when no one or nothing else is around. I don't believe in coincidences. Jake in his way is reminding me and the people he loves that he is still with us. And although we can hope that he is devoid of pain and enjoying somewhere that is far better than the world we live in now. Jake was an organ donor, And the reason why his end of watch to us is the 11th rather than the 8th or 9th is because of the amount of time it takes to find recipients for organs. It is because on March 11th, we wheeled my brother down the hallways of Freeman Hospital to his final stop, the surgery room, where we held his warm hand for the last time. Before that moment, my family and I sat with Jake for days in the hospital. His body was still warm, and his heart was beating, but we knew he was gone. As much as I looked at him and waited for him to pop up and wake and tell me that it was a bad dream, it never happened. Jake left us on the 8th, but he finished his mission in this world on the 11th, saving others. We now know Jake's vital organ donations have saved 4 lives since being in a hospital bed. Lives that had no hope of survival before learning of him. He saved people in life and death, and that to me is the definition of a hero. Today is now known officially as Officer Jake Reed Day. A year ago today, it was known as the day that would change my life and the people I love forever. When we lost Jake, I lost sight of any landmark that might have led me somewhere happier. And what I've learned this past year is that grief is love with nowhere to go. It will never get easier, but we will continue to learn, to endure and survive, and to honor Jake. Jake, you are our rocket man, and we love you yesterday, today, and forever. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Bob and Sam and all the speakers who lifted Jake up today. Outstanding words and stories for such a phenomenal young man. As we close today's ceremony, I want to thank everybody that came out today to honor Jake on such a special day. And I'll leave you with a quote from Felix Alexander. The hero is one who kindles a great light in the world, who sets the blazing torches on dark streets of life for men to see by. Jake was that hero who led the way. He embodied courage and sacrifice. He taught us how to live our lives with empathy, honor, and humor. And he left this life giving life to others. We leave here today better people.